So we are live at the same time on YouTube. The people who have difficulties to follow here can go to YouTube now or later. We have a special guest today, Susanna Mornati. Where is she in the list? Okay. Susanna, you can say hello so that everybody...
Sí. Sí, claro. Claro, buenos días a todos y gracias por invitarme a este seminario web. También tengo noticias para vosotros porque hace 2 días fue lanzado DSpace 7 y podríamos hablar de esto después la presentación. Y voy también a poner el enlace por la demo, la descarga, la documentación en el chat más tarde.
Thank you, Susanna. We have the habit to organize, to talk in English, because it's also a training for them in the end.
Sure. I was just, I thought it was nice to say hello in Spanish, but I will stick to English afterwards.
It's very nice.
My Spanish is not so good.
We will continue in English. First of all, I will have a short introduction, and afterwards we can. I will show the presentation that you prepared, and then Hector and the group of UCI will have the time to present their input today, and then we have time for a discussion. I think a discussion also about the DSpace community and where our group of developers can where we stand as a group of developers and how we can integrate in a way in that community. Okay, you see probably already the DSpace website, but what I also want to look is a bit at the status of DSpace in Cuba and in the project. And I looked in the open door overview, and in the end, there I only see one repository from the project. There are 13 repositories of Cuba. Most of them are DSpace based, but only one from UCLV is from the project. In the ROAR, there we have more repositories from the project. We have here the UCLV, but also Holguin is mentioned here. And we have also Pinar del Rio. I have seen Pinar del Rio in it. Havana, but Havana is not in the project directly. So we have 3 of the 5 universities. I know that Camagüey has also a DSpace installed, but it's good to register in those two registries of repositories. And UCI is working also with DSpace. It's important to be visible this way. Now, it's one aspect of our work. Another aspect of our work, and I hope I can have to make it a little bit smaller. Where is it? Can I get here? Yes, I can. Yes. Okay. Another aspect is that in 2016 already we discussed that approaches on our repository. And we had, first of all, a policy group, and that delivered a nice policy, but also we had a group, a developers group, who would work on a sort of submission model to create enhanced metadata for different tools, for DSpace, ABCD as well, or even for a Vivo. We had to look on these aspects. In reality, I think we have a problem with this group, and in the way that since 2018 work has stalled on it, because a lot of people have changed work, have left the project, and so on. But in the meantime, a lot of things are changing. And maybe one of the issues as well is that the integration of these developers in communities, in developers, open source communities, was not that strong. But okay, still the ideas are there. We will have to discuss, not today, how to go further with it. And also we have to look what the evolution is. We see that a lot of software is in evolution, and today we will hear about DSpace by itself. So I think it's probably time to readjust our strategy, and that will be in later discussions. But today it's good to know in which context we are thinking and we are working. So this is a little bit about the context. And now I'm going back to the presentation itself, because today we will hear a nice presentation of, and I have to stop the sharing of the screen. I think it's done. So, and I have to cut my camera, stop my camera, and now I will start the video tube, and I hope it's still there. To control if it's where did I left it? Okay, to be sure we have the right. Yes, share.
Hello, my name is Susanna Mornati. I am the Chief Operating Officer.
So we have here a nice presentation prepared by Susanna. And so we are sure that even if she wouldn't be, if there would have been a problem for her to be here, that we have the nice presentation. But after the presentation, we have time to discuss further. First, to ask specific questions, and after that, I think Hector and the group of UCI can also have a short presentation if they want, and then we can have more a discussion about the presentation, about the DSpace community, and so on. I will start the presentation now.
Chief Operating Officer at ForScience, a major contributor to DSpace 7. I'm here to introduce you to DSpace 7 and to provide a high-level overview of this solution. I will not go into technical details, but there are very good contributions about that, and I will provide you some useful links to go deeper into DSpace 7. This presentation is based on the slides presented by Tim Donahue at Open Repositories 2019, with the due updates, of course, and I'm very grateful to Tim for his great slides I can use today. In 2019, we made a DSpace 7 preview and a Docker installation procedures available. Then in 2020, 4 betas were released until in April 2021, when beta 5 was released. Between April and May this year, we ran a big testathon with the DSpace community, which helped to detect bugs, opening tickets. There were no blockers, only a few critical tickets, and these are being resolved or pushed to versions 7.1 or 7.2. So thanks to the working group of DSpace 7 and the whole community who helped, now we are going to have a DSpace 7.0 version released soon this year. The exact date will be announced at the Open Repositories Conference 2021, but you can already enjoy its main features through the beta 5 that is now available. So what are the main features of DSpace 7? DSpace 7 is the largest development effort in the history of DSpace software, and it has 5 major important features. First, there is a new single interface built with Angular, which replaces the old XML and JSP user interfaces, reducing the community effort to maintain 2 separate versions. It is modern, it is responsive, and it is built using a Bootstrap theme for easy customization. Then we have a completely redesigned REST API that is fully featured and self-documenting and human browsable. Another feature, important one, is the completely redesigned submission and workflow system, featuring a one-page submission process with a drag and drop interface and newly redesigned My DSpace. Then there are configurable entities, an optional item item type that is inspired by DSpace Chris. And we're approaching recommendations of the next generation repositories and requirements of the OpenAIRE guidelines. All this is built using some renewed backend of DSpace version 6. So how can we measure the progress of DSpace 7? We can use the timescale of open repositories, for instance, and we can see it all started 7 years ago when the DSpace governance, represented by the steering and the leadership group, identified a problem in the existence of 2 distinct user interfaces that produced double effort in development, in maintenance, and forked in the available features. So a strategic plan was designed to unify the user interface, and a prototype challenge was launched in 2016. In that competition, Angular beat the competitors and was chosen as the technology to be used to develop the new user interface. And as you can see here, we are in 2021, arriving at the release of the 7.0 version. So as I said, DSpace is the largest release in the history of DSpace. These are numbers collected in 2019, and we were not quite even done yet at the time. The statistics go back to DSpace version 3. There is no information about the size of these commits, but if you look at their number, it shows the activity for the release, and the activity for version 7 has been more than versions 3, 4, 5, and 6 combined. But DSpace 7 is outstanding also for the number of code changes, for the number of code lines that were added and removed compared to the past releases. A massive amount of work has been done to improve the code thanks to the working group in which Science plays a prominent role. Here is the architecture of the backend. It's very similar to the architecture that was redesigned for version 6. And we have a couple of images here explaining the main difference between versions 6 and 7. Here you see version 6 in Tomcat. You can find the JSP UI, the XML UI, and have other web applications to give you other features such as the sword and the UI PMH for interoperability. Then you have Solar in and for indexing and the search engine, and external to it you have the database and the asset store for data. While in DSpace 7 you have what has been done has been to separate the front end from the back end. So you can install them separately, even on separate servers if you want. And the front end now that you can see on the left is the new Angular interface. It's built on Bootstrap, on a Bootstrap theming, and is running on Node.js to deploy it. It communicates with the backend via the new REST API. The server web app now pulls all the backend together as a single application to provide not only the REST API, but also all the other applications such as SOAR, the OER PMH, the new resourcing, RDF, and these applications you can turn on or off as you see fit based on your needs via configuration. You can still see the old API versions 4.6. It is available to provide backwards compatibility, but it will go away in DSpace version 8. The server web app is running on Tomcat, while the Solar has been pulled out because recent versions require to no longer package with DSpace and be distributed with the application, but need separate installation. Here are a few technical design goals. Now, you can theme your user interface by a Bootstrap designer. But as the front end is very HTML and CSS centric, you can still do a lot without the Bootstrap designer. You can simply customize and brand your front end with some basic HTML and CSS knowledge. The back end now is one web app, as we saw before, based on Spring Boot, making it easier to install and to maintain, to work with, and less resource intensive. All this can be tried out now. So here you have the links. You can find the DSpace 7 UI demonstration and also the backend, the REST API. And there you can find on the home page, you can find the credentials to access it, to test it, play around, or you can also install it on your machine via Docker. Here we go a little bit into a couple of the new features of DSpace 7. One of the new features is the enhanced submission and workflow system. What does it consist of? First of all, you have some new concepts here. You have a one-page form that can be scrolled, so you no longer need to go through different pages to complete your submission process, because all these pages are now sections of the same page that you can collapse or expand, and you have visual check marks that show whether a section is complete or if there are required fields still to fill out. And another feature is that you can also put small size fields on the same row to shorten the form.
Live streaming is on.
Also, especially if you are a repository administrator, you will be happy to be able to revise or approve your content if you have a lot of it, because you can easily filter and search through all this content. Another feature that has been introduced in version 7 is related to the configurable entities. In this space, an entity is basically an item. It has to respect three requirements: being an item, having a specific defined type or name that can be, for instance, an article or a journal or an author, and it has relationships to other entities, and which means relations, links in the database. All these entities are optional, so you don't have to use them. It is just a new way to represent content in this space, but you can still continue to use your communities, collections, and items as you did before. Here are two examples of configurable entities that are configured by default in DSpace 7. So, for instance, the entities related to journal hierarchy, such as, the journal and its volumes, issues, and the publications, the articles. And the same article can be managed as in the entities of research as a publication related to authors, to projects, or to organizational units. So these entities are configurable. You can use them or not according to your data model. Now I should mention who's been involved in this huge achievement. DSpace is the organization that merged with DSpace 2 years ago, and is now in charge of organizing the community and the work around DSpace. DSpace is funded with members' contributions, and these contributions are used to pay for technical coordination, DSpace promotion, and governance organization. Then we have Admire and ForScience. We are the two major contributors to DSpace 7, in charge of all the technical work, the coordination of the two teams, one for the REST API and one for the Angular UI. And as you see below, there's also a number of funding contributors. They put funding into DSpace 7 to allow for Admire and ForScience to dedicate more technical resources and speed up the release of DSpace 7. A thing I would like to mention now is something that is around DSpace 7. For instance, the new methodology that was chosen. And these are very important features that cannot be seen in the realization, but are behind it and enhancing the quality of the software. First of all, a new estimation strategy. This is based on a wideband Delphi, that is a consensus-based technique for estimating effort based on iterative steps. And test-driven development practices were introduced, designed to identify and address issues earlier in the development process to lead to more stable releases. DSpace 7 adopted a working group model while it was working with the committers before, and development is going through sprints. And so this is a new organizational model for delivering the code. And then accessibility and security tests were introduced, possibly made by independent external organizations. DSpace 7 also faced quite a lot of development changes. As I already said, that it was the largest release so far, but I should also say that it received $0 in grant funding. So all this, with no grant funding available, it relied mainly on volunteer and community effort in terms of resources, human resources, and membership funding. And a lot of resources were put by ForScience and Admire, together with some paid development. And this paid development was made possible by extra funding that was generously donated by members in addition to the annual membership fee. So we should all thank the community for that. And I should also say that we are all very proud for having done this all without external funding. But to reach the goal, more work is still needed. And volunteers are really welcome, not only for development, but also for code reviews, testing, translations, and documentation. I will go into more detail later. So how can you contribute back? How it is possible to contribute back? If all institutions using DSpace would put 10 hours of some resource time, we would have 30,000 hours to make DSpace 7 richer and to make it happen faster. So the more people get involved, the quicker we can move on. How can you help technically? If you are a technical person, an IT software developer, and you have some expertise on Java or Angular, you can join the DSpace 7 working group. It's meeting every Thursday at 4 p.m. UTC. You can contribute code according to DSpace code contribution guidelines and the code style guide that are available with a link from the working group page. You will have these slides later, so you will have all the links clickable and available for further exploration. And you can join, so one of our weekly meetings tends to be hands-on, but we also welcome newcomers. There is no need for continuity. If you have limited time, you can jump into a sprint, give your contribution, then step out whenever you want. You can join our Slack channels. In this page of the working group, you have all the links. We use Slack as a way to stay in touch every day. And developers are also welcome to jump in and claim tickets for Angular UI or REST API. We maintain a list of easy tickets specifically for the newcomers, the new developers that can learn about the contribution process. And another great way to learn is to help with testing code and reporting the issues. Or you can simply start by joining and listening. You will learn a lot of useful things for your local activity. All upcoming DSpace 7 releases have a GitHub project board that is detailing progress and which tickets we'd like to complete for each release. So just join and help us. But what if you are a non-technical person? You can still help. You can join, for instance, the DSpace 7 marketing working group that is promoting DSpace, and DSpace 7 is meeting twice per month. Or you can join the DSpace Community Advisory Team, the DCAT. It is an interest group of repository managers who advise on community needs, and they also helped organizing the testathon this year. They meet once per month. Another way to help if you are a non-technical person is to join the DSpace 7 translation and localization effort. This, of course, if you know another language, and these translations in different languages are very useful for the adoption of DSpace worldwide. You can also help improving the DSpace 7 documentation. So you get a wiki account and you start reviewing, updating wiki pages, especially updating and enhancing the user documentation, because the technical one is quite complete, but our developers are a little bit lazy in preparing information for the end user. And this will surely help other people understand and being able to use DSpace 7. And last but not least, your institution can become a member. Contributing to DSpace and to the DSpace evolution is a way to give back to the community for using such an amazing product and maintaining it for the benefit of your institution itself. And there are several sizes of contribution. You can even put a very tiny contribution. If all institutions would do that, the DSpace community would be very, very rich. And becoming a member, of course, gives you the opportunity to influence the roadmap, to be
Live streaming is on.
And steering committees, and to fund the coordination effort that is done by the technical director and the product coordinator, which will come with this year's budget. So again, these are the links to try it out. And here you also have a link to the REST contract and documentation to get a little bit into more technical detail. Here you can monitor the progress of DSpace 7. DSpace 7 is coming, and here we have a page dedicated to the status of the 7.0 release. Last, a few words about my organization for science. We are a certified partner, Tier 1, for in the list of DSpace service providers. We're also certified ISO 9001. We are a solution provider of the Cloud Security Alliance. We are a certified service provider of ORCID, and also a service provider of DataSite. But more importantly, we are collaborating with the CORE, Confederation of Open Access Repositories, in the editorial board of the CORE vocabularies, and especially in the Next Generation Repositories Working Group, defining the features of the future repositories. And we are also collaborating with OpenAIRE, drafting the guidelines and participating to the innovation calls. And we're also been for many, many years in a Eurocris organization, and especially in the task group for the Serif and CRIS architectures. And this expertise is really relevant in defining the entities for the research domain. So thank you very much. Here you find a URL for these slides that you can consult again, and my email address in case you would like to keep in touch and get more information. Thank you for listening, and have a good continuation of your webinar series. Best wishes for your project, and thank you, and hope to have a chance to meet in person. Bye.
Hello, I hope the sound was in the end good enough. There was in the beginning some problems, but I think with enhancing a little bit the volume here, it helped. So, okay, we maybe people already have some questions. You can put it. Not at the moment. So, Susanna, maybe you, a question about the DSpace CRIS. Is it how is it at the moment related to the DSpace community? Can you tell us, give us some information?
Yes. You may know that DSpace CRIS was born several years ago from a project with the University of Hong Kong. And then the University of Hong Kong funded its development and decided that it should be made available to the whole community as free and open source. And so we did, and more universities were interested. So thanks to their contribution, we were able to make it evolve, and it is continuously aligned with DSpace. And so we were also able to release it. You are the first to know because the official announcement hasn't been done yet, but we released DSpace Chris 7, version 7, 2 days ago. So I'll put a link in the chat to the DSpace Chris homepage on the Lyrasis wiki, and you can go there. You find the links for the demo, for the documentation, and for the download of the latest code of DSpace Chris. So it is aligned with version 7, and version 7 of DSpace has not been released yet because there are still a few bugs to be resolved. But these bugs were not present in DSpace Chris, so we were able to release it earlier.
Thank you. Hector, Omar, you wanted to tell us a little bit about your experience at UCI?
Thank you for the presentation, Susana. In our university, we have a very recently experience with DSpace Chris. We are implemented in our university the research output information about Chris. And if we are implemented in our university a version 6 of DSpace Chris, integrated with our repository, but based on DSpace. Maybe if we have 2 minutes, can I show you or share what is our current status about the solution in our university? If Mari is in agree.
That's the idea, that you can present it, huh? Hmm?
I could share. Comparto primero. Sí, comparte algo. Sí, no, comparte. Ya, share. Ya, eso me gusta para no. Para no tener como. Ya, levanta el home de ese de encuentra el. La web, levanta. Okay. Well, I don't know if you can see the screenshot.
I can see it.
Yeah. Well, this is our DSpace solution, the DSpace solution. Here we have the research groups in the research group, the project. We are configured. We are setting any project in the solution. We have the researchers in our solution. We have important things about the researchers because we are integrating the solution with LDAP in our university, and we have to make some configuration for separate the researcher with the author, because we are collaborating in several researchers with another author outside of our university. And for instance, it was very important to separate the researcher of our university with respect to another author in the system for the statistic and another information related to our research production. The research groups, we have 16 research groups here, Omar. Yes. We have 16 research groups relating to artificial intelligence, project management, health information system, and so on. And in each research group, we are linking information with the researcher in our university and the publication of information of our university. We have the organized unit associated to the research group, and in another hand, we have the collections relating to the topics of the main information of the main topic of research in the computer science in general. This is our solution. We have, for example, in the collection of the artificial intelligence, we have several research or result publication information of our university. We have in this moment a lot of information in the system with the approach of auto-archiving of the researchers in our university. This is the brief of our solution, and we are very happy with the results of the possibility of the DSpace Chris in our environment. And we are working with several developers that stay here with us in the presentation. For example, Ariel and Hani are two developers that are working with us in the solution of the DSpace, and we are very happy to contribute at the community of the DSpace and DSpace Chris in particular. Thank you.
Hector, have you already tried to work with the community?
Well, maybe we hope. Maybe we need to access to more information or more documentation about DSpace Chris. We find that the information about DSpace Chris is not so much. We access to the wiki and several information, but it's very important. The most technical information about for the developer and so on. But we hope to start in the community and to contribute in the short time to the DSpace Chris in the community in general. We are very hope to do that.
Susanna, I have a question. What are the advantages now to go to, because this is a solution developed in the version 6. What are the advantages to go to version 7?
The advantage is the same that are characteristic of plain DSpace, because the base code is the same, and DSpace Chris started as an extension of DSpace, and it is still an extension of DSpace. So the main advantage of DSpace 7 is the new architecture.
Yeah.
It is a modern architecture. There is a complete separation of the presentation layer from the business logic. And so you can have a more flexible deployment system. You can deploy the front end and the back end on different servers, especially if you want to address performance. And then you can also use the REST services for a stronger integration with external systems.
Yeah.
So I would recommend to start working with the community. I've put a link to the new demo of DSpace Chris 7 on the chat for this webinar. And starting from there, you can understand what distinguishes DSpace Chris from DSpace on version 7. And from this page, you can also find the links in the footer to the source code, to the documentation, and also to the Slack channel where you can start talking to the rest of the community using DSpace Chris. This is very useful because users can help the other users, can help each other. And I got this statement from Hector that documentation is not really abundant. So, but I saw the work that Hector did on this UCI installation is really very good and impressive. So I'm sure that he learned a lot in this process, building this DSpace Chris installation. So I am sure that he will have a way to improve the documentation. You know, the wiki is open, it is free. There is an address to ask for an access to the wiki. So it would be very, very good for all the other users if Hector and the team at UCI could go to the wiki and improve the documentation. This is one of the first simplest ways to help all the other institutions.
Yeah. I think that that Susanna mentioned about the new architecture of DSpace 7 is very important for integrate in, for example, to the DSpace Chris, because if we have an API for interoperability with the user interface, I think that is most separated and most scalable for integrate a new functionality in the DSpace Chris in general. In another aspect, for example, we have some problems with the interoperability in the submission in the interoperability with the Crossref API, for example, when we collect information that Crossref sent to the submission model, is not available all the information about the paper or the article, or in general, is not available all information. For example, the summary of the keyword or other information is not loaded in the submission DSpace Chris, and this is very important thing that we can work in the future. For it's very important to integrate it with the API for the DSpace 7 from the DSpace Chris. We're thinking that it's very important in the new version of DSpace.
Someone has a question at the moment? I have still two questions, Susanna. First of all, in DSpace 7, we see these new IDs of entities. To create entities about everything besides the publication, where you can build a lot of relations and so on. In DSpace Chris, you have already, in another way, build up entities as well. Is there a way of conflict or a way of cooperation between those two approaches?
Well, the entities were created in DSpace CRIS 12 years ago to be able to meet the needs of the research community because the research domain is a complex one. It is presently mapped by the serif model that is representing these entities with their relationships. So, for instance, researchers, publications, projects, data sets, and so on. And when DSpace CRIS was born, DSpace had no entities, so they were built from scratch. And more recently, the concept of entities was introduced in DSpace 7. So using a different way of engineering it, using the item types. So we aligned the code of DSpace CRIS to this new architecture of data, using the item types. We could not do it before because if we had done, we needed to change the DSpace code, and we didn't want to because DSpace CRIS always has to be aligned with the code base of DSpace. So we put some effort in the most recent couple of years to re-engineer also the entities in DSpace CRIS to be aligned with DSpace. But the difference is still that the entities in DSpace are just born and they are very primitive. There's a small functionality compared to DSpace CRIS. So there is still a long way to go for DSpace entities to be equivalent to the functionality of DSpace CRIS entities. And one of the goals that we have at For Science, and also our partners now collaborating with DSpace CRIS code, is to merge it into DSpace. And we hoped to do it in version 7, but still the functionality available in DSpace CRIS is too much for a quick merge, so maybe it will happen with version 8.
But as I understand, well, at the moment, in the DSpace CRIS, you are using the entities, but as defined in DSpace 7 simply, but extended, or is it still? Yes. That's the way. Huh?
Yes. For instance, DSpace is not able to manage ternary relationships. It's just able to manage binary relationships, but we implemented the ternary relationships in DSpace CRIS because we know it is important to make the whole research domain navigable. So to be able to link projects to data sets, to publications, link publications to researchers, link researchers to organizations. It is a very complex network of relationships that it is still not fully represented in DSpace 7.
Okay. The other question was about metadata extraction. I didn't see it in the DSpace 7 in the end. The usage of Grobit. In the past, there was already the usage of DOIs and such things like that, but of Grobit, is that not yet? Is it something that for the future, or is it already in the CRIS, for example?
It is implemented in CRIS, in DSpace CRIS,
but not in DSpace 7.
Yeah, DSpace 7 still has a long roadmap ahead. I will put a link here to the page with the status for the release of version 7. And you will see there that version 7 will be released later. The date has to be announced next week at Open Repositories. I can anticipate that They are talking about the 2nd of August this year, but it may still be changed in the next few days.
Yes.
And but it will not contain, you will see it in this page, it will not contain all functionality of previous DSpace versions, unfortunately, because the work ahead is still a lot. So it may come in 7.1 or 7.2 or even later, depending on the amount of effort that we can put in the release in the next weeks, and depending on the estimation of effort that is being done by the working group. So I know Grobit is an important function. You find it already in DSpace Chris, but it will take still some time to find it in standard DSpace.
Okay.
But the code base is the same. The only difference is that DSpace Chris has more functionality, so it has more code. It has extended code. But the lines that are in common are all the lines of DSpace.
Okay. So on that level, DSpace has simply at the moment changed from structure architecture in this version. Not many new functionalities are added directly in the DSpace 7.
Well, the entities are an important addition, although they are still working in a sort of a small functionality way, primitive way, but you can already use them. And what has changed very much is something that was contributed directly by For Science, and it is the new submission and workflow. It has completely changed. There is a completely new paradigm to make a submission. It is done in one single page. The form is one single page with sections that are expanding. And you really need to go and test it to appreciate the difference with the old version.
I would like, if I don't receive much questions at the moment, but I think there are still a lot of interesting things to ask. I'm sure of that. Nobody have, everybody's
a bit shy, maybe.
A bit shy, clearly.
Well, I'll tell you. Next week on Monday there will be a 3-hour workshop on DSpace, and so if you're able to follow it, and if it cannot be followed by Cuba, it will be recorded, so you will have access to it later. But it is very important because the main representatives of our community, Tim Donoghue, who is the technical director of DSpace, our Andrea Bollini of For Science, who is the lead of the REST API team, and people from Admire, who are the lead of the Angular UI team, and so on. They will be presenting the latest news of DSpace 7, and it is worthwhile attending the workshop or having a look at the recording later. And then in one of the presentations, we will also present DSpace Chris 7 in detail. So again, you can access the recording later and get the latest news about DSpace Chris.
If you see the people of open repositories, you have to tell them to choose for open software. Zoom is maybe very popular, but a lot of countries cannot access it. Huh?
I will let them know. I'm sorry I was not aware until a few days ago, and for sure it is not a good thing. And maybe next year they will be aware about this and choose something different.
Another aspect, I will anyway follow it and record it and put it on their Moodle directly. So they will already have next week the different presentations about DSpace and about all the aspects of DSpace. Feb, do you have some questions, some remarks?
Thanks, Mark. First of all, thank you very much because of the presentation was really good and with a lot of information. And right now, I'm only thinking if someone here in Cuba, I mean the universities, the partner universities, because all of our partner universities use DSpace for their repositories, and they are not all in version 6, but of course the improvement did it on version 7 are really good. If the main change is regarding the architecture of the platform, it is really good, the changes, and I think it will improve very much the way that our universities use DSpace. But precisely in that way, I want to know, since the launching of the version 7 and experiences from the different part of the world, updating DSpace 7 servers to DSpace, I mean from DSpace 6 and previously versions, if they have any experiences on the difficulties that people are facing updating the versions to DSpace 7, and in case they have some experiences, what do you suggest to give a deeper look in case they want to update to version 7 of DSpace? And thank you very much.
Okay, there is a specific page in the documentation for upgrades. It is still being completed by the community because the process is still underway. And also there will be procedures for DSpace Chris to upgrade from version 5 and version 6 towards version 7. And these procedures in particular have been funded by the Technical University of Hamburg, which we thank a lot because they gave a funding for expressly for developing these procedures for migration. And they are also directly interested because they are on DSpace Chris version 5. So as soon as there will be the first experiences, I'm sure the procedures will improve and the documentation will extend. So keep in touch with the DSpace and the DSpace Chris sites because you will find help and documentation there.
Okay, thank you.
Manuel, at UCLV, you have a lot of experience with the DSpace site. Have some opinion about moving to DSpace 7? Do you have some opinion about that?
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Well, Mar, I need to study the documentation about DSpace 7, but it's very new, a very good news if DSpace allow more than 2 relations. But in this moment, I need to study more deep the documentation about DSpace 7 because I was studying the documentation to migrate from our version to a 6th version of the space. But now with this release of the Space 7, I have to study. Right now, I not have an opinion with a solid base about the Space 7 because I didn't study the Space 7 with time.
I think we have time because DSpace 7 by itself is not yet available. That will be in the next months. DSpace Chris 7 is already available. That's in a way good news. Still, I think we need to have a sort of internal discussion about our general approach on this. I mean, for me personally, I'm not completely convinced that a repository and a quiz system should be completely in the same system. That helps maybe sometimes, but at the same other times it is, in my opinion, counterproductive. But okay, we need to discuss our strategy for that. Another aspect, I don't know if people have other questions about the software itself. Some remarks? No, okay, then another aspect, and I will share my screen again. Open, share your screen. Okay. So we are back at the page, and one of the important messages of Susanna was anyway to participate in the community, and I think on the level that you have here, all information, for example, about the users group meetings and so on, about all about the developers' resources, but also sometimes it is good simply to have a first introduction to the community. And for example, you can, as already said, become a member and work with different in different activities, but simply already to have an idea what are the discussions in the community. I think it is also very important to have a first access to the wiki, but also to the mailing lists. I think these are very relevant community. This is very important community information already, because I'm not sure that immediately going to the developers groups, if you don't have a good feeling about what is happening there, it will be difficult to integrate. Another aspect is that we have our own goals a little bit. We have to discuss this further. And so on that level, as an individual, you can already do a lot. And this is maybe also interesting to have a look for the tasks that Febe gave you last week about how to work with open source communities. But at the same time, as a Cuban community, we have our own goals, and maybe we have to see how to share that with the community. I think it is a very important way to work that in the past maybe was not enough stressed. But I think working with the information which is on the website you can already get a good idea and also find the ways to work. And besides that, we need to discuss later on our strategy further on. Susanna, do you have some remarks on that?
No, I think it is a good way to start to join the non-technical lists. We have Slack channels, for instance, and you can ask any question, and somebody in the community will help you. And there are also some Spanish user groups who communicate in Spanish language. And this is also helpful if you would like to start with, being more at your ease with the language. The users of DSpace are really numerous. Another way to participate could be to start with a membership. Memberships have all sorts of prices. So even a few $100 could be a good starting point, so that you can contribute to the development and the enhancement of DSpace. And if you start reading the documentation, you will for sure find some parts that can be improved. And that is also a good way to participate in the community. The community will be very grateful if you can do something. For instance, it is true, as Mark said, that it is difficult to start with a working group with the software developers. But for instance, Tim Donoghue has always a small group of code reviews that are easier, and that can be assigned to the newcomers. So you start being more familiar with the code. So before contributing, you can start reviewing the code that other people wrote and become more familiar with the way the code is written and so on. If you have some Java expertise or Angular, it will be very useful. DSpace Chris also has a small community, smaller than DSpace, but there are regular meetings on the pages of DSpace Chris. You can find information, and again there as well you can start maybe attending the meetings. You can start by listening, and then one day you will be able to contribute as well.
I have the users group page, and you see there is one in Central America, but and maybe there is not for the Caribbean, but you see Panama, Nicaragua, and so on are there. But there is also probably a bigger one, a Spanish user group, for example. And the ID, what you mentioned, it can also be relevant. Now, one aspect that I want to clarify, I said that, in my opinion, there is a difference between an open access repository and a CRIS system, but it doesn't say anything about the software. It doesn't have to. It can be the same software nearly as long. But I think for me, open access is a goal by itself that disappears nowadays more and more in research management. And so to save open access on that level, or to make, I think it is sometimes better to have both, but in a separate way.
Well, with DSpace Chris, we experienced two phenomena. The first one is that institutions save a lot of money because maintaining a repository and maintaining a separate Chris is double effort, both financially and human effort. And the second effect is that more researchers are willing to put their papers in the institutional repository if they can also get something back from the repository, which means, for instance, having their own personal profile, being able to collect the list of their publications there. So the CRIS is able to provide some services to the researchers who start to appreciate the institutional repository in a more comprehensive way. So these are the two advantages that I saw by experience in these years.
That was, in my opinion, it's a false advantage for open access, because in the end, it's what you see, that people publish in journals, and that is coming to the repository, to the CRIS repository. And I don't know if this is in the end the idea that people had originally with open access. I have my doubts about I have my doubts about that. But okay, this is a discussion, a big discussion, I think, that we can do later maybe, because in the meantime, what time is it already? 5:30. Susanna or Faber or anyone in the group who wants to make a comment, please.
I think that we had a very good session, very interesting, with a lot of information. Let the developers work with that information, and also to make some evaluations locally at each university. I think that it would be very interesting to have another talks about DSpace and DSpace Greece, because right now we have a very large experience at UCLB working with DSpace, and also in the other universities. I don't think that only UCLB can.
Pinar,
yes, also Pinar. But I mean, because from our partner universities right now, UCLB has the largest database for their libraries on DSpace, and it could be really interesting to have their opinion. I know that the team of the libraries of UCLB for sure will be talking about the new features and also the new advantages of DSpace 7 to make a very good evaluation if they are going to upgrade when DSpace 7 will be available. And for sure, UC team will study deeper DSpace Greece 7, which is also available right now. And it will be, of course, new discussions about that. I think that we had a very good session today. And for sure, maybe we will contact again Susanna for another, maybe concrete meeting with some doubts that we will have in the next days. Okay, I want to thanks again her for her availability to this session.
Practically, the presentation of Susanna is also on the Moodle. So everybody who wants to look at it again will have the possibility. This session is also recorded and will also be available on YouTube and on the Moodle. And besides, I will record all the sessions of open repositories and make it available during next week. And it will be also on YouTube, but you have better access to the Moodle than to external resources. Therefore, we make an effort to bring it as much as possible to the program Moodle, to the Vliret Moodle. Okay.
Sí, yo estoy disponible para volver. Me gustaría mucho. Y también me gusta decir que os agradezco mucho vuestra hospitalidad, gracias a Marc por la organización y espero encontraros a todos vosotros en otra ocasión. Y también mis mejores deseos para vuestros proyectos en Cuba.
Muchas gracias. Hasta luego. See you
Hasta
all.
luego.
See you all. We can close now.
Adiós. Chao.